My name is Lucy and I'm Head of News here at Royal 1251am, and I'm here today interviewing Charlotte Earl for President of Warwick Students' Union. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Charlotte. First of all, let's start off focusing on you, obviously, this campaign. What experience do you have that makes you suitable for the role of President of Warwick Students' Union?
Well, ever since I was young, I've been involved with youth politics. Back home, for example, I was on the Croydon Youth Council for many years, so for Croydon Young Mayor. I helped kind of run various campaigns for the young people of Croydon. And so when I came to Warwick, I was very involved to help it apply that experience into the SU. So just a few weeks after arriving here, I was elected onto the Societies exec. And I've had a brilliant year there, helping societies set up, providing advice, helping with various campaigns to help improve the societies at Warwick. That's given me a really strong insight into the SU, and I think it's kind of given me an access which thinks I could be a really good representative for students. I've also been involved with various societies on various execs, for example, and so I've already got kind of a very good understanding of helping students and leading things here at Warwick. So I think, though I am only a fresher and people may sneer at that and say you're not qualified to run a pres, I've got probably at this point over 9 years of youth politics experience simply by doing things back home, and also starting here at Warwick.
Okay, well, so now moving away from you yourself and focusing more on your campaign, what issues do you think are the most prominent facing students at Warwick, or what is the issue that is the most important that the student body are facing in this current academic year?
So I think for me, though if you read my manifesto you may think it's a little bit jokey and funny, one big issue that I feel has to be addressed is a lot of the debates over anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. There's currently the whole debate over whether the university should adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, and I think that's, especially for Jewish students, it's really causing a lot of distress by the fact that the university are continuing to block that. So I think if I was president, I'd be really keen to make sure that the university do adopt that definition and carry on the current work of the president in kind of lobbying for that change. And also that just kind of forms a general debate over kind of racism and feeling safe and included on campus, and for all groups, whether that's based on race, the LGBT plus community, disability, and I'm myself, I'm disabled and a member of the LGBT community, and Warwick has got a lot of kind of barriers to overcome when it comes to those areas. So just generally a very inclusive, accessible campus, I think, is the way forward for Warwick.
Okay, so having a look at another issue that comes to the fore in these campaigns regularly each year, mental health. What are your plans, if any, to improve mental health provision at the university?
To be honest, as somebody that's currently using the services, just more funding just has to be at the core of it, because you could have the most highly trained counsellors and therapists available and the most kind of accessible service, but if you don't have the funding, they simply can't deliver more counsellors, more therapists, so it will mean that students don't have access to the service. I think that the waiting times have to be dramatically reduced, and that can be done with more funding, hiring more counsellors. I think also there has to be more services available off campus, because especially emergency care for students who perhaps live in Leamington or Coventry, and having like an off-campus university run service for students to access that emergency support, and also just generally emergency support, to be honest, because currently you can wait up to a month to get that initial appointment, but just being able to turn up, have a meeting, and to get that initial mental health support, I think is really crucial for students that are in dire needs. I also think that the departments have a part to play in helping to deal with mental health, especially to do with things like essay extensions. Currently it can be quite awkward if you do face a mental health or health emergency to get support, simply because you might not have been able to secure evidence by the fact that you've been let down by the wellbeing support services and you haven't been able to get evidence from them. So then I think departments should be more flexible on extensions for students with emergency needs, and that disabled students or students with a history of mental health issues should be able to get automatic extensions for essays, and potentially mitigating circumstances without kind of it being a problem. It should be easy, effectively.
Another issue that is facing students on campus, obviously incredibly different to mental health, is study space.
Yes.
This comes up again every year. So how are you planning to tackle what some are dubbing the study space crisis on campus?
Yeah, so I think as a fresher, I haven't quite felt the full brunt of this issue yet, but speaking to friends in other years, I can tell that it is really a core issue. One big thing which I think a lot of other candidates have discussed the potential for is lobbying the university to convert the old sports centre into kind of a new massive learning grid or something like that. I think that's a really good idea. Even whatever happens, I think the old sports centre should be redeveloped into a space that benefits students, whether that's as a second library, as a learning grid, or just generally opening up the current building with loads of tables and areas that can be used for study space. I also think the university and the Students' Union has has the potential to open up some of its areas to be study spaces. So currently, they could use the common rooms as an area that just open up students throughout the day. They could just go there and work on some tables that can be placed there and removed when it has evening events. One big plan of mine, if I was elected president, would be to open T-Bar earlier. So it used to be open from midday, however currently now it's only open from 4. I think especially during the summer and spring it will be a really nice venue where you can just go and do some work with some chill music, maybe a pint, and so opening that earlier would be really good for students, I think. And I think it just needs to be little changes, of course getting the old sports centre would be a really good thing and it would create a lot of study space, but just opening up the odd room here and there, it would just help create a few extra spaces across the year, which I think would be eventually it would all add up and be really good for students.
Lovely. So again, one thing we, especially this year, can't get away without talking about is the strikes.
Yes.
Which have affected Warwick campus both before Christmas and currently. Do you think the SU should be trying to get university to reimburse students financially for time lost due to these strikes?
Definitely. I think it's a shame that the SU have been tied into unconditionally supporting the strikes, and I think that's making it anxious about actually going for the compensation. But I think any person that's elected to the SU at this election should be really vocal about securing the compensation for students most affected. And personally, I'm quite lucky. Very few of my contact hours have been affected, but especially in departments like history, for example, the students that have basically got nothing on this week, and I think it's definitely affecting a lot of students, and they're really worrying because with exams kind of coming up next term, deadlines on the horizon, with some people doing basically exclusively coursework degrees and just not having their seminar tutors there for essay feedback is really harming students. So there should be more emergency support for students affected by the strikes to make sure that they can get support with essays if their teachers are on strike. And the compensation should definitely be there, and if elected, I would really push the university for it.
Okay, so again, having a look more towards the SU now.
Yeah.
Do you think the number of students who participate in student union democracy, do you think that number is proportionate to the student demographic? Is there a relationship there? I
think that there is definitely a lack of participation within the SU across the entire university, and it's one reason that my campaign, I have made it quite light-hearted and I've tried to, and quite fun in a way, to engage students that kind of view the SU as an inherently bureaucratic and inaccessible organisation. Because I think the average student, they would look at the fact that you have to submit a motion currently to get anything changed, and that they might have no idea how to write that motion. They might kind of have no idea how they can actually get involved without getting elected. So, and especially students that suffer from anxiety and things like that, they might really be worried at the idea of having to stand up, defend a motion, or kind of run for election and represent students, but they still might be really passionate about getting that change. So I think the SU has to become inherently more accessible at its very core. I think that the motion system should be dramatically reformed, and instead it should be a system where you can submit an idea, and then the SU exec responsible for that area should then have to write a motion and lobby for that change.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question.
Yeah, okay.
How would you improve the participation in SU democracy?
So yeah, as I said, making it easier to lobby for change, submit motions. I also think the exec's role should be dramatically expanded. Having sat on SOC's exec, I can see that though yes, they can do some really good things and they can help societies, most people have no idea they exist, or have no idea what they really do. So I think that they should be more vocal, and once a lot of people know who their SABs are, people should also know who their execs are, and be able to contact them. I also think it's really crucial that there's kind of, the SU is made out to be less of a bureaucratic and kind of stuffy organisation in a way, by having more accessible SABs, whether that be through open office hours, but also I think SU HQ, for most students, they will never even enter this building. Like the SABs are kind of stuck over in the corner downstairs. So I think that one thing I would be quite keen is to kind of relocate the SABs in a way, move the offices into the core SU, where most students will be. Because at the moment, like, most people don't even know where the SABs are, to be honest. And as our representatives, students kind of should just have the right to know exactly where they are, and have the right to just be going to speak to them whenever they want.
Well, my last question, you'll be pleased to hear. What would you say has been your biggest achievement so far at your time at university?
Biggest achievement? Actually happened yesterday, and that was making my debut in varsity.
Hey!
Yeah, so I played for the women's rugby team, and I made my debut at Butts Park, which was a nice fancy stadium, and I think, considering I hadn't actually picked up a rugby ball before September when I came to Warwick, being able to play in some amazing stadium, representing Warwick in one of the biggest sporting events, I would say actually the biggest sporting event of the year in the Warwick calendar, just completely amazing. And it's an honour to have represented the uni in that way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us, and can we take the opportunity to wish you the best of luck for your campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Johnny Jenkins, and this week it's the election week at the SU. I'm with presidential candidate Luke Mepham. Luke, good to see you.
Love to see you. Thank you for having me.
Tell me, what experience do you have that makes you suitable to be president of the SU here at Warwick?
So, having been societies officer for the last year, I have a very good understanding of how the SU works, how the university works, and kind of the relationship between them. And also, I think that the thing that's very important is knowing what's kind of possible. So everything on my manifesto is realistic, achievable. And so I know that it's kind of work that can be done, and it isn't completely unrealistic to be done in the year, essentially.
And what are the top issues, your top priorities for this week and for the year ahead?
Yeah, so my top issues are surrounding kind of improving study space. So there's loads and loads of areas that can be improved within study space. So that's utilising the old sports centre, using spaces such as the upstairs of Copperham's when it's not being used. And also continuing the work to reform the disciplinary procedure. So it's been reformed for sexual misconduct, so I want to make sure that hold the university to account and make sure that they develop that for all forms of discrimination. Also implementing mental health first aid training for society and sports club exec members. So that's a course that I myself have been on, and it's not completely unreasonable to roll that out to all the welfare officers, and it really, really will be able to help improve mental health provision within societies and sports clubs.
other than on mental health in particular,
Yep.
other than doing that training, how else can we improve mental health provision?
So I think obviously the university's wellbeing support services have had a reform this year and massively increased their funding. So there are some kind of teething difficulties with that. So continuing to hold them to account with that and ensure that they're really getting the word out about the new system to all students so that everyone knows that the facilities are there and can be accessed. Also continue to promote our advice centre and really defining that role of welfare officers within sports clubs and societies. So obviously sports clubs and societies are some of our most active members and they've got such a massive reach across campus to all different communities. So being able to really define that role, give them the proper training, then they'll really be able to help everyone within those communities.
There does seem to be a lot of confusion over what a welfare officer does. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it sort of makes sense. What's been your biggest achievement over your time at Warwick? And of course that will also involve your time as societies officer.
Mm-hmm. So over the last year I've launched, kind of my main project towards the beginning of the year was launching a scheme called SocsMark, which is essentially a society recognition scheme to try and encourage societies to be more inclusive, to kind of develop year on year, to provide better wellbeing support and also be more sustainable and environmentally friendly. So I've seen some great work come out of that and some societies putting on things such as wellbeing weeks, starting to cut back on flyering and all great things like that. So that's had a lot of positives in loads of different areas. I've also managed to increase society funding by quite a few grand, as well as starting a new kind of funding pot that's a lot more accessible, as well as supporting loads of societies to get funding through things like the Student Support Fund, which I know Earl got funding for their new mixing desk from.
Yeah, coming soon.
Absolutely.
What about Socks Fed, that money you have to pay to be a member of a society? A lot of people say I'm not a member of any society because I resent paying £90 and £20, whatever it costs.
Absolutely.
Would you get rid of it?
So Society Federation, again, everything on my manifesto is realistic and achievable. I would love to say get rid of Society Federation, however I don't believe that's realistic nor possible. It covers a lot of things such as society grants. Pretty much all of that money goes towards grants directly to the societies and also pays for essential things like insurance. However, I would like to start looking at a multi-year Stocks Fed. I've actually started writing a board paper to take to the Board of Trustees to propose multi-year Societies Federation and also implement a Societies Federation Hardship Fund. So for those students that can't pay the £19 and might receive other kind of bursaries, to give them the opportunity to still get involved with societies.
And how would you improve, and how are you planning over this week to improve turnout, involvement in student politics, get more people involved, get more people voting?
So obviously this is the best time to encourage people to kind of get involved with the SU who otherwise might not get involved. So obviously while I'm out campaigning I'll be encouraging everybody, but also through things coming up such as the democracy review is still ongoing, so that's looking at just making sure that the elections are as accessible to everyone and really much more representative of the kind of Warwick demographic.
What about these strikes going on at the moment? A lot of people very upset. They're paid for a service, they're not getting it, there's no sort of sign of any compensation. Do you think the SU should be trying to get the university to refund students the time lost to strikes?
I think the main thing we've got to think about with these strikes is obviously there's going to be a lot of students who are very kind of upset that they are paying for service, and with the constant marketisation of higher education, it's understandable that they're upset that they're not getting what they're paying for. I think what we've got to remember though is that the kind of the teaching conditions of our staff are our learning conditions, and so we really should be standing in solidarity with them. I think that in the end, the university should be putting a lot more pressure on kind of UK and getting the pensions sorted essentially. Whether we're funding students or not, I guess that would be a very, very difficult question as to kind of how much do you refund them for what. I think that's something that we should look at in the future, but for now I think we need to just be really putting pressure on the university to sort it out for our staff.
Okay, Luke, tell me your top priorities one more time.
My top priorities: an exam timetable in term one. It's not good that we had to wait as long as we did last year. Loads of universities release it at the beginning of the year so you can actually use it while choosing your modules. I don't see why we shouldn't also be able to do that. Mental health first aid training for society and sports club exec members, as I mentioned before. Rolling out that disciplinary process to all forms of discrimination, not just sexual misconduct. Improving study space, so making sure that there's much more provisions, especially come term 3 when it's going to be chaos. And there's loads more, all in my manifesto, kind of ranging from welfare all the way to sports clubs and societies, education, and fighting these strikes.
Luke Mepham, thank you very much. Yeah. We will see you on Friday, 8 PM in the Duck for the big decision.
Thank you very much.